Why are millions of middle-class families living paycheck to paycheck even though, on paper, they are earning more than ever before? It's a startling reality that many people overlook. Despite rising incomes over the past few decades, the financial stability of the middle class is rapidly eroding. To put this into perspective, back in 1980, the middle class controlled roughly 60% of the total wealth in the United States. Fast forward to today, and that share has plummeted to less than 30%. This dramatic decline means that wealth is becoming more concentrated at the top, leaving the middle class squeezed from both sides. One of the key reasons middle-class wealth is vanishing is the shrinking safety net that once helped families stay afloat. Essential costs like healthcare, education, and housing have skyrocketed in price, far outpacing wage growth. For example, healthcare costs have more than doubled in the last 20 years, placing a heavy financial burden on families. Education expenses have also ballooned, with the average college tuition rising nearly 200% since the 1980s. At the same time, housing prices have increased dramatically. In many cities, home prices have more than doubled since 2000. Meanwhile, wages for the typical worker have barely kept up. In fact, median wages have grown by only about 17% over the last 2 decades, while housing costs have soared over 100%. To make matters worse, many employer-provided benefits, including pensions and comprehensive health insurance, have been scaled back or eliminated altogether. This means that middle-class families are increasingly responsible for managing risks that were once shared or covered by employers and government programs, leaving them more exposed to financial shocks and less able to build lasting wealth. One of the biggest challenges squeezing the middle class is inflation, especially how the cost of everyday essentials is rising faster than wages. While incomes have seen only modest increases, prices for basic goods and services have surged significantly, making it harder for families to keep up. For example, a gallon of milk cost about $2.78 in 2000, but today it sells for over $4, a nearly 44% increase. This kind of price growth isn't limited to food. Utilities, fuel, and other necessities have all become more expensive. What's even trickier is the phenomenon called stealth inflation. Instead of raising prices outright, many companies shrink product sizes while keeping the price the same. So consumers end up paying more per unit without realizing it, like buying a candy bar that used to be 2 ounces but is now only 1.5 ounces for the same price. These rising fixed costs, including mortgage payments, utilities, groceries, and transportation, consume a larger share of the average paycheck. As a result, even if your salary goes up, a growing portion of your income simply covers these essentials, leaving less room for savings or discretionary spending. This relentless rise in the cost of living is a major reason why many middle-class families feel financially stretched despite earning more. Another critical factor contributing to the erosion of middle-class wealth is the steady decline in employer-provided benefits and pensions. In previous decades, many middle-class workers relied on generous benefits packages, including health insurance, retirement plans, and defined benefit pensions that guaranteed steady income after retirement. These perks provided a strong financial safety net, reducing personal expenses and offering long-term security. However, today, fewer employers offer traditional pensions. Instead, many have shifted to 401k-style plans, where the responsibility of saving and investing rests solely on the employee. This shift places more risk and burden on workers, who must now navigate complex investment decisions and save enough to fund their own retirements. Health insurance coverage has also become more expensive and less comprehensive, often requiring employees to pay higher premiums, deductibles, and out-of-pocket costs. Additionally, many employers have cut back on other benefits like paid leave, bonuses, and tuition assistance. As a result, middle-class families face higher personal financial risks and expenses, making it harder to build and maintain wealth over time. This reduction in employer support intensifies the financial pressure on households already struggling with rising costs and stagnant wages. Wealth concentration has shifted dramatically over the past few decades, with the richest households accumulating an ever-growing share of assets, while the middle class faces stagnation or decline. Tax policies have played a significant role in this trend. Since the 1980s, many tax reforms have disproportionately favored the wealthy, such as lower capital gains taxes and estate tax reductions. Meanwhile, Middle-class families have seen fewer tax breaks and rising payroll taxes that fund Social Security and Medicare. This shift means that while the ultra-wealthy benefit from investments and inheritances, middle-class workers largely rely on wages that haven't kept pace with inflation. The growing gap between the top earners and everyone else reduces economic mobility and limits the ability of middle-class families to build and preserve wealth. Furthermore, middle-income earners often face higher effective tax rates once state and local taxes, property taxes, and consumption taxes are considered, squeezing their budgets even further. This redistribution of wealth upwards contributes to the shrinking financial stability and purchasing power of the middle class, accelerating the disappearance of its economic influence. As middle-class incomes have largely stagnated while living costs continue to rise, many families have increasingly turned to debt as a way to maintain their lifestyles. This growing dependence on borrowing is reflected in soaring credit card balances, auto loans, and student debt levels. According to the Federal Reserve, total household debt in the U.S. has now exceeded $17 trillion, a staggering figure. And a significant share of this debt is carried by middle-income households trying to bridge the gap between their earnings and expenses. This mounting debt burden creates a fragile financial situation. Even a relatively small emergency, such as unexpected medical bills or a sudden job loss, can quickly spiral into a crisis. The pressure of high-interest debt not only adds to monthly financial stress, but also diverts funds that could otherwise be saved or invested for the future. This means that instead of building wealth or creating a safety net, many middle-class families find themselves trapped in a cycle of borrowing to cover everyday costs. This cycle restricts their financial freedom and contributes to a sense of being stuck, despite working long hours. Without clear strategies to manage, reduce, or eliminate debt, the middle class faces increasing risk of deeper financial insecurity and reduced upward mobility. The rapid disappearance of middle-class wealth is not due to a single cause, but rather a perfect storm of several economic pressures working against everyday families. We've seen how stagnant wages have failed to keep up with the soaring costs of essential expenses like housing, healthcare, and education. At the same time, the safety nets that once protected the middle class, such as robust employer benefits and pensions, are steadily shrinking or disappearing. On top of that, inflation and stealth inflation quietly erode purchasing power, making it harder for families to maintain their lifestyles without taking on increasing amounts of debt. This rising debt burden, combined with the lack of financial buffers, has created a situation where millions of families feel financially vulnerable and stuck despite their hard work. But here's the important takeaway. It's not all doom and gloom. Understanding these challenges is the first step to regaining control of your financial future. Building a healthy emergency fund can be a lifesaver when unexpected costs arise. Learning how to manage and reduce debt will free up your resources and reduce stress, allowing you to invest more in your long-term financial goals. Additionally, diversifying your income streams, whether through side businesses, investments, or passive income, can provide much-needed financial security and growth opportunities. If this video gave you new insights or made you rethink your financial habits, please hit that like button and subscribe for more in-depth content on personal finance, wealth-building strategies, and how to protect yourself from economic challenges. I also encourage you to share your thoughts, questions, or personal experiences in the comments below. Your story might help others, and I'm here to provide guidance and support as you navigate these complex issues. Remember, awareness is the most powerful tool you have. By educating yourself and taking deliberate steps, you can begin to reclaim your financial security and build a more resilient future, one where you are in control, not caught in the squeeze. Let's take that journey together.